Today's program is brought to you by pennystockprofessor.com. For all the best OTCBB stock picks, sign up at pennystockprofessor.com. Thank you for tuning in to another TBC Daily News Update. I'm Brandon Vincent.
And I'm Angelina Soriano. Chile's benchmark IPSA index rose 1.19% on Friday, rallying from Thursday's losses despite global losses on investors' fears over Dubai's debt problems, while the peso firmed. The blue chip IPSA opened 0.5% lower on global losses, but rallied in afternoon trading to close at 3,222.22 points, boosted by a host of stocks. The all-market IGPA closed 0.96% higher at 15,243.57 points.
There is a phenomenon known as the lottery winner's curse, where those who suddenly strike it rich do not live happily ever after. If the experience at the Savannah River site here is any guide, something like it may threaten the winners of stimulus bonanzas. Earlier this year, the nuclear site was awarded one of the biggest pots of stimulus money at $1.6 billion to accelerate its cleanup of radioactive waste left behind after decades of producing materials for the nation's nuclear weapons stockpile. But the pressure to spend the money quickly and effectively has led to a series of bitter disputes among officials that burst into public view this fall after the tensions reached critical mass. At the heart of the dispute is the question of whether the officials in Washington or at the job site can do a better job at managing the cleanup. The tensions were spurred a wide-ranging investigation by the Department of Energy's Inspector General and a host of bitter accusations, including one that led to an inquiry into whether one stimulus official had really threatened another by saying that she wanted to shoot him. They have also raised questions not only about one of the biggest stimulus projects, but also about the oversight and operations at one of the country's biggest nuclear sites as it grapples with the complex question of cleanup. Cleaning up the nation's nuclear legacy is a mammoth task that is expected to take decades and cost up to $260 billion to complete.
Shares of United Technologies Corporation rose about 2% on Friday, the morning after the diversified U.S. manufacturer said it was expected earnings to rise about 10% next year. Analysts took heart in the forecast, which showed the payoff after a year of cost-cutting by the world's largest maker of elevators, offsetting what the company expects to be flat to 2% higher organic revenue. Analysts described the forecasted profit of $4.40 to $4.65 per share as conservative. Shares of the Hartford, Connecticut-based company were up $1.19 at $69.12 in early trading on the New York Stock Exchange.
President Gloria Macapagal-Arroyo of the Philippines has approved the lifting of martial law in a southern province where 57 people were massacred last month in the country's worst political violence. Executive Secretary Eduardo Ermita told a news conference that the martial law edict will be lifted later Saturday. The week-long martial law in the province led to a massive military and police operation against the ruling Ampachuan clan, blamed for the mass killing of members of a rival family and 30 journalists. Large amounts of weapons were seized, and at least 24 people were charged with the rebellion.
South African power utility Eskom said on Friday it had signed export credit agency loans totaling 705 million euros, or 1.4 billion, for its 4,800 megawatt-style power station. Eskom said it had agreed the loans with Germany's KfW IPEX Bank, the Bank of Tokyo Mitsubishi UFJ, and Deutsche Bank. It also received funds from the corporate and investment banking division of South Africa's Standard Bank, Nedbank Capital, and Rand Merchant Bank, a division of First Rand Bank Limited. Eskom has launched an ambitious expansion program but still needs to raise parts of the 385 billion rand, 51 billion required to supply fast rising demand in the country. The utility said last month delays in signing over contracts for the coal-fired power station will result in the plant being commissioned later than the original 2013 start date.
Intel is about to roll out some pretty impressive mobile processors, finally bringing its Nelheim Core I architecture to the mainstream mobile space. So what can we expect from Apple? First, a little recent history. Apple so far has elected not to use the Core i7 quad-core mobile processors in its MacBook Pro line, which isn't that surprising. The first crop of i7s barely qualify as mobile processors. They have a desktop-like thermal design power of 45 watts that wreak havoc on battery life. That said, the Hewlett-Packard NV15 now offers both quad-core i7 processors. And a big imponderable is whether Apple will adopt a future 32-nanometer version of the quad-core mobile i-series for the 17-inch MacBook Pro. Presumably, this would have a lower TDP and be more amenable to Apple. Now for some armchair analysis. One of the burning questions is whether new MacBooks will use Intel's Arendelle Mobile Core i-series of processors. Arendelle is significant for two reasons. It is part of Intel's 32-nanometer chip rollout and is the first instance of Intel combining graphics function with the main CPU processor. This results in better overall power efficiency and integrated graphics performance. One school of thought is that it makes for a head-scratching scenario since Arendelle will be the pillar of mobile Core i3 and i5 lineups. A likely scenario is that Apple, one way or another, chooses to attach NVIDIA or ATI discrete graphics processors to Arendelle or facsimile thereof. And speaking of NVIDIA and ATI, instead of trying to second-guess Apple on all of the possible graphics chip permeations, the easier question to ask is which graphics chip supplier will prevail this time around. Will this continue, or will Apple strike more of a balance between NVIDIA and ATI? And what, pray tell, will happen to the MacBook Air, which is coming up on its second anniversary in January? I won't venture a guess, not yet at least, because in an industry where the advertising moves much faster than the technology itself, it's always hard to guess.
Attention if you have diabetes.
Hello, I'm Alan Thicke. As the father of a child with diabetes, it's important that I keep up to date with the latest in treatments and technology. That's why I'm happy to tell you about a breakthrough in diabetes care through CCS Medical. You don't need to stick your fingers anymore. This new meter allows you to test on your arm, so it's virtually pain-free. Plus, it uses gold test strips. Real laser-etched gold in every strip provides the ideal testing surface for one of the most accurate readings possible. Best of all, CCS Medical can send you this meter at no cost. With CCS Medical, they deliver your diabetes supplies to your home. They work with Medicare or your insurance to process the paperwork. They even have nurses certified in diabetes available to answer questions. And for a limited time, CCS Medical will also send you a diabetes cookbook. All this from a company trusted and recommended by thousands of doctors around the country. Call CCS Medical today.
Today's Dynamic Watch List is brought to you by OTCBB.com. Quote Media Incorporation, QMCI, Mobile Pro Corporation, MOBL, XKEM, RGRP, ACHI, IMNR, Unigene Laboratories Incorporation, UGNE, CKEIE, Opexa Therapeutics Incorporation, OPXA, Cargo Connection Logistics Holding Incorporation, CRGO, MGEN, Axial Vector Engine Corporation, AXVC, and NVAO.
In today's green news, artificial trees aren't very good for removing CO2 from the atmosphere, but they do have their place in our lives, usually around Christmas. And while it's too early to roll out our real or artificial tree comparisons, there is always time to look at new ideas for living with less and getting by in smaller spaces. That's why this new half a Christmas tree is such a good idea. The artificial tree appears bushy and full in front, but it is an illusion. It has been sliced down the middle, so it has no back, allowing owners to push the Christmas tree against their room walls, saving valuable space. A recent study by the UK Commission for Architecture and Building Environment concluded that most people in the UK find their houses cramped and inflexible, badly designed, and that their furniture does not often fit. This appears to be a mismatch between the space needed by residents for everyday activities and the space provided by the market.
Thank you for tuning in to another TBC Daily News Update. I'm Brandon Vincent.
And I'm Angelina Soriano.